I'd like to welcome people today to the Environment and Climate Change Scrutiny panel. And we've got one item on the agenda. We're looking at the Kirklees Snow Warden Scheme today. That's what we'll be looking at for the large part. We're going to kick off by introducing the panel, and I'd like to welcome Kevin Evans as a co-optee to the panel. Right, my name's Andrew Cooper, I'm chair of the panel.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Matthew McLaughlin from the Corn Valley Ward.
And Councillor John Taylor from Kirkburton Ward.
And Kevin Evans, Levin Honley, co-optee.
Minutes of the previous meeting. Anybody wants to rise into that? Shall we approve those minutes? Yep, okay. So, any declarations of interest? No. Admission of the public, they're very welcome, always. No deputations or petitions. No public to provide public question times. So we'll go straight on to the item for today, which is the Snow Warden Scheme update, and Nick Jenkin.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. So yes, I'm here to provide our annual Snow Wardens winter update and talk a bit about the feedback we got from our survey that we did over the summer with our Snow Wardens. So I'll just start an introduction for those who aren't aware of the scheme. The scheme began in winter 2021 as initially a 2-year pilot project. The initiative encourages volunteers to clear pavements in their communities, helping pedestrians to stay connected to main routes, and assisting local facilities such as religious centres, doctor surgeries and nurseries in keeping safe during the winter season. Volunteers are provided with some pictures here. I've got a hand scoop, some grit, a high visibility jacket or vest, and also grit as well. So in terms of the scheme, we had a slow couple of years throughout the trial, and then in 24-25, so winter just gone, we saw an increase from 44 snow wardens to 120, so quite a dramatic increase there. That was partly due to, we had a couple of weather events during that season, which does always prompt interest in the scheme. We'd had a couple of mild winters leading up to that. And we also introduced community groups to the scheme as well. So for the first time, we let groups join en masse. There are currently 37 snow wardens who've come to us during the year who are interested in joining, ready for the next season. So we're glad people are still talking about the scheme even in the summer. This is just a bit of a breakdown of where the current individual snow wardens are. So this doesn't include community groups because a lot of the time they span across multiple wards. But majority of our wards, give or take, I think 20 or 21 of our wards have snow wardens in there. Some more than others, but there is a split across the entire district, which is quite nice to see. I'll run through some of the issues we encountered during the 24-25 season. We had a bit of reduced management resource, so the service is managed by the waste and park support teams. Both teams also received spikes in complaints and service requests alongside the weather events, particularly the January event, which did impact our turnaround times for sign-ups and replenishment, just because the team had to deal with some of the statutory duties they had around waste. Post the severe weather event in January, the highways teams concentrated on refilling the grit bin network. That also meant there was a delay in replenishing snow warden grit following the event, because we did have to prioritise refilling the grit bins. And a delivery-only method meant that some snow wardens did not receive full kits for a few weeks following their sign-ups, and that's just due to resourcing the deliveries. So they're done by people who volunteer their time through the service, as opposed to a set group of people delivering. So, as I mentioned, we did do a survey through the summer, and I've got some of the volunteer feedback. So I split them into two sections. The first is equipment and grit. So 64% of the participants said they were happy with the equipment provided. 4 residents did encounter problems with their shovels, while 3 preferred a grit sprinkler instead of a hand shovel. We'd previously done grit sprinklers before, but we've gone to hand shovels now. 85% of volunteers indicated a willingness to collect grit or supplies from the local pickup locations at the start or mid-season restocking, which is really good because that does allow us to be more proactive. And 89% of volunteers felt confident about when to apply grit. We give them guidance at the beginning of the season, so that's really positive to hear that people found the guidance was useful. 71% of volunteers mentioned they did not have sufficient grit, whereas 29% were happy with the quantity. No one wanted less. And 32% of volunteers experienced issues storing the grit they received. And in terms of then general feedback, so we had a free text box that we analysed. So in areas or streets with multiple snow wardens, having centralised storage and coordination would be helpful, potentially managed via social media platforms, as some residents mentioned. For streets that already have snow wardens, additional residents should be encouraged to join and assisted through targeted comms. They did mention the resupply of grit after the January weather event was considered too slow, and I say we do agree, and we mentioned before that was due to the resource on our side. And although communication with the team was generally seen as positive, again it experienced delays during the January snowfall, and that was just down to the volume of requests that were received for the Waste and Parks teams during that time. I'll quickly run through the guidance that we give for snow wardens before I talk about how we're going to take that feedback into the new season. So guidance is reviewed and updated annually. Within the 25-26 guidance, further information will be added about the appropriate amount of grit is required, as that is something that we have back from residents as they don't actually know how much grit to put down. So a 10 kilogram of grit, which is one of the bags we gave, should be able to cover around 250 metres of footpath, so 500 square metres in total. We did find a few volunteers ran out quite quickly, so we're just going to make sure that everyone's aware of how much grit they should be able to get out of that bag. Current guidance also advises snow wardens on how to clear effectively, so that uses the Met Office's snow code, which is the recognised safe way to grit. We advise how to judge when to take action, when to not take action, details of the equipment and appropriate footwear required, how to protect themselves, and also how to report a problem as well. So changes for the new season. So due to a few issues we had with the shovels that I mentioned earlier, we'll be ordering additional stock to allow us to replenish any breakages. We normally have to, once we got rid of all our stock, we'd have to order in specially for any damage, so we're going to be doing that. We're going to have some stock on hand for that. Residents will have the option to receive an extra bag of grit when they sign up or during replenishment, so everyone will get the 10 kilograms as standard. We'll give them an option for a second 10 kilogram bag should they require. And in response to feedback, we're adopting a hybrid model combining both collection and delivery. So specific delivery slots will be allocated for new volunteers and separate slots designated for restocking. But both highways depots will serve as collection points on a slot basis, offering one weekday and one weekend day each. Additional collection points in the district are currently being identified. We're aiming for a minimum of 3 throughout the district, equally spaced. Collection points will operate at intervals yet to be confirmed throughout the season, so post-severe weather events to make sure people can come back for more, alongside increasing capacity for grit restocking deliveries. So that allows us to expand the scheme at a quicker rate than we have done in previous years. So the 25-26 season, the sign-up window opens next week, a week today exactly, October 15th, and that's done through the snow.wardens@kirklees.gov.uk. To allow for a more managed approach to the scheme, new volunteer numbers will be capped at 100 snow wardens initially, so we'll order 100 kits in. Once the cap is hit, the service will review our resource. We can then order more kits and reopen the scheme, or take expressions of interest during that time. But that just allows us to make sure that everyone who contacts us gets allocated a delivery slot or collection slot. Schools and nurseries will now be able to sign up to receive kits to support access to school gates. So that's not to do the playgrounds, etc. That's to do access to school gates. That's based on some of the feedback we got from schools earlier in the year. The scheme will have 30 delivery slots for new kits on a first-come, first-served basis, and collection slots will operate up to at least 80 new kit collections. Alongside, there'll be extra slots for grit collection for existing wardens, because we're not going to cap that because there's 120 people who need a grit restock there. Collection points will reopen following severe weather events if required, as I mentioned. And any questions?
Okay, so thank you for that. And who wants to kick off? Okay, Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you for the presentation, Nick. It's good to see you again. Welcome back.
Well,
It doesn't seem 5 minutes since 2021 we were introducing the pilot scheme, so it's good to see that it is still going. Just to clarify on the numbers, I was a little confused reading through the report because the numbers on the map didn't add up to 120, but you've explained that that's because it doesn't include the community groups. So is that 100? So far for the coming season, we have 120 plus the new 37. That's the current number. Okay, thank you. On the feedback that we received, it's only 64% of participants said they were happy with the equipment. That seems a bit low to me. That's almost half not being happy, or is that almost half not bothering to fill in the survey one way or the other? So if you could clarify what the other percentages thought. Problems with the shovels. You said the shovels kept breaking. So the new shovels that we're ordering in the stock, are they going to be the same kinds of shovels and therefore susceptible to also breaking, or are we getting better shovels? And just last one for the time being, Chair. 32% of volunteers experience difficulty storing their grit. So will we be providing any extra guidance or training on how to store grit properly? I just noticed that wasn't on the slide of new initiatives. So that'll do for now, please, Chair.
Okay, over to you.
Perfect. So, yep, that's 120 plus the 37. So the 64% happy with their equipment. So, and this was a mistake that I made when I did the survey. We asked them about grit in that as well. So actually the feedback of people who weren't happy in the comment boxes, they were using that section to say they wanted more grit. So no one came in particularly about anything else. But that was I should have made it a separate question. Obviously, we knew it was an issue. In terms of shovels, sorry, again, I should have clarified. It was the older shovels that broke, so we changed supplier last year to a more robust shovel, but the ones we given the previous years are the ones that had broken. We went to wooden handles last year, which were a bit more robust than the plastic tube handles. So we're going to stick with those ones because none of those ones broke. And the 32% difficulty storing grit, we have been delivering in sandbags the past couple of years. The problem is they're porous. We're changing to almost like a rubble style bag now that's completely unporous. So the storage was, people said it had leaked out onto carpets when it got a bit wet, or had kind of gone onto garage concrete floors. So we're going to go to those non-porous rubble bags now. So that should solve that. We're hoping. But we will be running the survey again now annually, so we'll be able to update that if it doesn't help.
Okay, Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Nick. Just a couple of questions. One, just back on the shovels. Did we get any feedback on why the shovels were breaking? Because I'm just wondering, particularly in January, when you had that frozen ice, were they trying to shift frozen ice with the shovels, and that's why the handles were breaking? You know, were they using them perhaps not for the purpose that they were provided? So, you know, it would be useful feedback and clarification for the snow wardens if that was the case. And then my other question was, under the issues encountered, it says the service is managed by waste and park support teams, which kind of suggests it's not being managed by, or nobody clearly has the accountability for it. So I would expect a service like this to have a clear owner, not have two teams that report in different areas, because that's when you start to have problems, when it's not really clear who's actually responsible for this. So just a comment on that, please, if I may.
Yeah, perfect. So in terms of, we don't know why the shovels broke, but that's a really fair point. What we can do is build that into the guidance. So we're just finalising the guidance this week and just make sure people aren't using it to break through ice, and also aren't overloading it with too much grit when they're walking either. We don't have people, so we don't know the reason, but I think it's a really fair comment, and we can definitely build that into the guidance as to exactly how to use the shovels. In terms of the accountability, so both of those teams actually reporting to me, both the Waste and the Parks team. So I am overseeing the service along with Kim Pearson, who's my business technical officer. She manages all the customer service teams across Waste, Parks and Highways. So the teams do work really closely together, and they have a shared inbox that they use, so at least there's only one version of the truth, as well as we use a SharePoint site to look at slots, etc., booking people in for deliveries, and we'll do the same for collections. But we will be, to kind of combat the management issue we had last year, we will be having weekly meetings with the snow wardens, and they actually start this week, with the internal team, just to make sure that everything's been covered, so no one thinks someone else is picking it up.
Not entirely sure I'm supposed to be asking questions, but just a quick one. You mentioned that grit bins were filled as a priority over restocking snow wardens, and I absolutely understand the drive behind that. But for areas that aren't serviced by grit bins, like new developments, for example, where they're not being placed into that, is there a plan to prioritise snow wardens in those areas equally with grit bins in areas which are served?
I think I'm probably going to pass that over to Rash to answer, because I don't have control over the grit bins, so I'll pass that over to Rash.
Yeah, I mean, Snow Warden, the scheme is a volunteering scheme. So if there are volunteers coming forward in areas where there aren't grit bins, then we'd certainly support that and welcome that going forward. But on the grit bin location, the criteria is very much, we've got a set for 1,450 grit bins on the network, and we don't often review that. But yeah, where we have got issues, yeah, that's something we could take away. Remember that where we don't have grit bins, we could seek out potential snow warden opportunities to see where we can fill that gap. Thank you.
Thanks. Can I follow that up, Rash? The council's got some quite ambitious housing targets and housing plans, there isn't an intention to put any grit bins on any of these new housing estates. So what is the authority's plan for supporting residents in these new housing developments? Some like the size of, Riverside in Dewsbury, that are huge. So what's our support for, challenging winter weather in those estates if we're saying we're never going to put any grit bins in there and we're not going to prioritise getting snow wardens in there? What will the new residents who are paying council tax be able to expect from us? Because at the minute, I think the answer is nothing. But that can't be a credible answer going forward.
Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, it's a challenging proposition that you make, but we are looking. I mean, I appreciate that where we've got new developments coming forward, and they've got a steep hills as another ward or area that gets a grit bin. Unfortunately, there is a challenge with that, but I am actually looking at with the team a way that we could look at supporting those new developments coming forward. I don't have the answer at the moment, but we are aware of that concern, Councillor, that you've raised, and whilst I don't have the answer at the moment, but there is a possibility that we could look at ways of trying to generate some kind of financial support where we could look at reviewing that, but it's not going to be an easy fix. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Taylor, you want to come back?
Just to follow on from that, I'm now looking at our cabinet member to say, this is an issue you need to own, because this is a political decision about how and where we use our resources. So is this one you'll take away to try and find a solution to? Because you can't realistically tell people that buy these new houses on large estates, particularly I think if we talk about the valleys where it's quite steep, and our answer is we're going to expect you to pay a full council tax like everybody else, but we're not going to support you when winter comes along. So I think I'm not asking for an answer now. I don't expect that, but I am asking you as the cabinet member responsible to take this issue away and come back to us at some point with an answer on what the administration's answer is on how you're going to support these residents that currently will get no support.
All right, to my chair. Absolutely, Councillor Taylor. I think that the item on the agenda today was around the snow warden policy, but the broader policy on winter maintenance, and particularly around what we do about these new builds, it's not a particularly new problem that we're facing, but as you say, the scale of sort of housing development is becoming much more urgent and more pertinent. More than happy at either future scrutiny in a council meeting answer to a question to sort of address that with you all as well.
Okay, Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Chair. Just returning to the snow warden scheme itself. I'm looking at the map. If my understanding of Kirklees ward boundary geography is correct, which it probably is. Yeah, they are about to change, so I'll have to learn it all again. There are 3 wards that currently have none, which is Gorka, Burslem, Berkshire, Liversidge and Gummersall, but there's quite a few who just have 1 or 2 snow warden schemes. So my question is about your promotion strategy. How is it you're planning to push this out to areas that are currently underrepresented and try and get people to sign up? I think it's quite clear from this map which sets of councillors, for example, have pushed it in their wards, because there's some wards that are miles ahead of others. But you can't rely on that. So what's your actual promotion and advertising strategy for the scheme?
Yeah, of course. So we have in previous years really relied on councillors to help us get the message out, and we will hopefully do the same this year. So you will receive a councillor briefing next week pre the window opening, which will have this map on as well for everyone to be able to view and understand what's happening in their ward. We would ask ward councillors to promote it. We'll also use Nextdoor, which is the very localised social media that can target specific wards to really push the message in any specific wards that don't have any snow wardens or have, as I say, very few numbers. Alongside, we use Gritter Twitter as well to promote it. I think it's still called Gritter Twitter, even though Twitter's not called Twitter anymore. Gritter Twitter or Gritter X to promote that out there. We're happy to speak to any councillors who want any extra resource, so we can share logo packs, for example, if they want to promote on social media. I know certain councils, I think Councillor Taylor's put in newsletters before as well. So we're happy to help with any of that. Myself or Kim will easily support, but if all councils don't feel that they want to push it, we'll still use social media and Nextdoor to push that message out there.
Okay, Councillor Hawkins.
Okay, yeah, just on the back of that, I think from one of the earlier slides as well, I think the biggest sort of uptake we saw on the scheme and the biggest promoter of it was actually when it snowed as well. That's when we saw quite an increase there, and while we can't build that into our strategy, I think when people recognise it's coming up to the season, we do tend to get an increase in there. So, hopefully a bit of press, a bit of awareness on the back of this meeting and the campaign we've got lined up should hopefully get more people signed up to it.
No, yeah, it's clear that the severe weather this year was, which is why if you originally, you could only sign up in advance, and once winter began, you weren't allowed to become a snow warden, and we advised quite strongly as a panel against that and to allow people to join mid-season, and I think that position has been verified because you're absolutely right. People only think about a problem when it's actually in front of them and on top of them in this case. Just on this, it's really good to hear that you're doing proper social media promotion. Is that paid for promotion, or are you relying on organic reach?
We just do solely organic reach for snow wardens.
Okay, so a few questions from me. One of the things that came up at the chair's briefing was one of the officers was quite enthusiastic about doing a video about how to apply grit and things. So that was that. I'm just wondering whether that's going to happen, because that sounds like a really good idea to do it, because most people are visual learners, aren't they? So a YouTube video on that would be good. I'm wondering about the impact of the scheme, how we actually measure impact, because I suppose there's a certain amount of concern as to the community use, because this is meant for community use, isn't it? As opposed to doing your drive, and so it's. I think it'd be really good to capture from you how we understand the community benefit of what's being done. And just one action I'm going to take, there is one road in the Newsham ward, which I represent, called Malvern Road, where it's very steep and there are 3 grit bins on it for a reason, and traffic hurtles down to Newsham Road into other traffic. So I think I'm trying to recruit lots of snow wardens on Malvern Road, because when all the grit disappears, and then we have an issue. So that's one action I'm going to take away from today. So yeah, okay.
Yeah, perfect. Always happy to help you promote it in certain areas. So yeah, we can speak about that. We are looking at a video. We haven't scheduled it in yet, and I didn't want to commit to it in the presentation, but we are looking at some sort of video that'll be. We have a Snow Warden webpage for those who haven't seen it, and that'll be hosted on there. So yes, it is a very good idea. I just don't want to commit to it and then end up starring in it myself because no one else will. In terms of the impact measurement, it's something that we don't really do, and the reason being is there is a level of trust that we have with our volunteers that if they want to be part of the scheme, we do trust that they want to do it as part of their community, but we also don't want to make them unpaid council employees and start to direct people around. So I think there's maybe some work we can do in terms of when we speak to snow wardens through our engagement, whether that be in season or whether that be out of season as part of the feedback collection, which we don't currently do, which I'm more than happy to take forward. I would be resistant to start to tell them where to go or find out where they've gone without directing them to be, without them being seen as kind of someone we're not paying. And they are volunteers giving up their time, and they do know their communities, I think, probably a little bit better than we do as well, especially kind of sitting in Civic Centre 1. So more than happy to let them take the lead.
So the sort of thing, just simple things like quotes from people about, this helped me clear the path to my local church. This scheme meant we were able to get to the nursery for our children. We cleared the village centre. So some just bits of feedback that demonstrate the value, because demonstrating the value, I think, would be, because that's missing from this presentation, I think, and so it'd be great. It'd be great in future years to sort of capture it in some shape or form. Just a simple request to people as to, what difference has this scheme made? Okay. Anything more before we move on? Councillor Taylor.
Just a proposal that perhaps Tyler should star in the video, if I can get some support for that.
I think that's unanimous, actually, Tyler. Yeah, we're looking forward to True Grit with Tyler Hawkins. In of course the John Wayne role. There we go. Right. So we now move on to the last item on the agenda, which is the work plan. Anything anybody wishes to bring up under that item? Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, one of the issues that keeps coming up time and again is in relation to parking enforcement and the availability of parking enforcement officers and the success or otherwise of them. And linking to that, any feedback or review on the impact of car park charging and whether that's had an impact on, cars parking on roads or pavements or whatever, whether that's made issues any worse.
That sounds like a valid item. Another thing that I would like to add to that is out-of-hours enforcement of parking. I know there is a real issue at Huddersfield Leisure Centre where some people very selfishly park in the disabled parking bays when they haven't got a blue badge. So I know that's something Kirklees has attempted to do some things with, but there's still work to be done there, and it would be good to know how we approach that. Okay. Anything else more?
I was just going to comment on that. One of the problems I've had is out hours as well, with trying to get parking enforcement done at schools when they're dropping off in the mornings, being told that the officers aren't available till after 9 a.m, which makes it a bit pointless.
Sure. I think I mentioned in the early briefing that school street schemes can be enforced with AMPR cameras under the moving traffic offences schemes that we can now operate, and so that's something that I know is happening in another nearby council, and I think we could be looking at that here. I know Kirklees is beginning to do work on moving traffic offences, which I'm pleased about, and might have had a little bit to do with. So there we go. Councillor McLaughlin. Thank
you, Chair. Yeah, I support what both you and Councillor Taylor have said. I think parking enforcement and the impact of the parking charges is a valid and worthy area for scrutiny. I would like to keep pushing for the district heat network. It's a while since it last came, and I'm keen to see that damn thing built before I die, because it's been a long time coming. But also, it's been a while since we had an update from the White Rose Forest or from our tree planting team. We're on the edge of tree planting season, so perhaps maybe in the spring, we at Kirklees are the lead authority in West Yorkshire on the White Rose Forest, so I think we should have an update from them about how it's going and how our canopy cover targets are being achieved.
Okay, thanks for those two items, and I think it is right that we push, because I think we need more agenda items. We need to be doing our job scrutinising. I feel we're not getting as much into the detail of what's going on in Kirklees policy as I'd like currently. So, yes, thank you for those items. I think we'll seek to add those to the programme. I agree on the Huddersfield District Heat Network. I think it was first brought up as a concept when I first became a councillor in 1999, when I had considerably more hair. Okay, so anything else before we close the meeting? No? Right, thank you everybody. A relatively short meeting today, but thanks for your attendance and thanks for your questions. Thanks.